question. I know you guys kind of briefly just described what your general role is, but do you describe more specifically what responsibilities you have or like what your day-to-day entails?
I can take this one first again. So yeah, a lot of people think social media is simple as, making a tweet and just hitting send, but there's a lot more to it than people think. So I mean, at least for Cloud9, we have teams, we have games. It's much like kind of like just a regular sport. Like you're covering the games and you're making live tweets as the game's going on. If something hype is happening, you're gonna tweet something about it. Otherwise, you just lost, a bunch of, free likes on something amazing that just happened in the game. Or at least the one thing that I really emphasized when I joined and like that I really emphasized that I would bring value to was TikTok. Like um, I really love making TikToks and helping the C9 TikTok account grow personally, because that's like when I joined, it was kind of there wasn't enough people to help make it grow. So to me, when I joined, it was like this little project that I worked on as an intern. So to me, it's like a little baby to me. It's, I'm watching it grow up. It's getting more followers, all this stuff. But I mean, aside from TikTok being my favorite personal thing to work on, there's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, every other platform we use as an organization. Social campaigns. One of the most recent social campaigns that I worked on was a campaign with this woman named Emily Perkins, who mistakenly got, who people thought was our pro player perks, and so it was a whole fun campaign that we made around it, showing just how awesome it is to be C9 fan, how welcoming we are. Yeah, and there's a lot of planning that goes into stuff like that. And it's not just like, at the drop of a hat, okay, I'm gonna tweet this at this moment. Um, and yeah, it's really fun. We're constantly making memes. I love my job. A lot of people don't get to say they make memes for a living, but I get the pleasure of saying that, so it's pretty awesome. Making memes, making TikToks, sometimes video editing, Photoshop. There's a lot of things. Honestly, there's a lot of hats that you have to wear, I think, in esports, because it's such a new industry. So there are moments where even though something isn't necessarily part of your job description, you'll have to help out. Like, for example, I used to edit a lot of the IGTV videos that went on the C9 Instagram account, because our content team is doing like really big content stuff for YouTube and other platforms, right? But yeah, those are just some of the things that I do on a daily basis.
I'll go next, keep our order predictable. So as I mentioned, we built the esports program a few years ago. In 2016, we launched, and there was no example for us to follow. So I talk about entrepreneurial journey. Literally, I was the first person with this title of director of esports, maybe anywhere, maybe in the world. So we built something brand new at your university. So you should be very proud that it's very unique and special. So I've been able to kind of shape what role I need, but B, there's kind of a like a startup mentality where everyone does a little bit of everything. But overall, I would say the things that I do mostly, my role has evolved into these things. One is kind of business development. How do we fund our program? That has been through arena operations, which are not existent right now, through corporate sponsorships, which we have been very successful with. And then also philanthropy, which has been up and down over the years. So I'm always trying to think about how do we fund our program? With that funding, what are the opportunities? What do we want to do? So it's strategy as well. A lot of conversation about what games should we have, what scholarships we offer. Currently, we support League of Legends and Overwatch. C9 may have some decent teams in those games as well. Additionally, business development. So I guess partnerships, like I suggested, people decisions. I try to make all final people decisions because I think people are the most important part of any organization. And so when it comes to hiring or firing, when it comes to making sure people understand where they are in terms of performance evaluations, if there's conflict within the team, I make sure I'm hands-on with all of that. I'm by far older than all of my staff. And so had more life experiences, more successes, more failures. And just able to kind of contribute that life experience to the people in our organization. So what else do I do? And I think just overall general management. and competition. So lots of things to do. There's a million people doing a million things. Shout out to Jess. When she was with our program, she did a million things as well. She was hired to do high school tournaments, but also did graphic design and streaming and all these amazing other things. So yeah, at a startup company, like I view the esports program as kind of like a startup at a university. You kind of have to do whatever's needed, and it changes regularly. And so you're managing up, you're managing down, and just trying to build and grow. So a little bit about what I do.
Okay, we're keeping the order. So I have two roles right now, head of gaming and live streaming at the charity. So for that one, I manage a couple of streamers that we have on contract. It's day-to-day stuff, checking on their content, making sure they're scheduled, onboarding the streamers, obviously making sure that everything's up to code and up to brand and all that good stuff. So creating documentation for that, creating processes and stuff like that to do intake, to do onboarding, to do touch points, to scheduling the content, to making sure everybody's happy. So that's my role there in the charity, and more of a operations role as well. So that's everything from fundraising, admin, keeping projects moving. We actually have a event coming up with Rooster Teeth next Wednesday. Plug. Charity streaming event. So helping out with that event as well, just collecting materials and kind of like the same stuff that you probably guys had to do to put together this event, just on a bigger scale. So you guys already have those skills to do that. And then for Twitch, I'm on the partnerships team, so can't talk too much about it, but essentially, if any part of Twitch wants to work with a really big streamer, they have to go through the partnerships department. So we handle that. And I handle various things that go with that, and it's very cool, and get to talk to a lot of different people, and get to know a lot of things, and it's a very cross-functional role as well. It's still gaming, it's still esports, even though it's Twitch. So you help out teammates, you do heavy lifting if you need it, support each other, and yeah, that's my day to day for both of those positions.
So I think I could break down my day-to-day into two different responsibilities. I'd say my main priority is I oversee the endorsements team that represents across 100 different talents in esports and gaming that UTA represents. So some of our talent that we represent would include like Nick Merckx, Pokemon, Scump, FaZe Clan, across the board, top down, early creators, mid creators, creators at the top of their game. Basically what my team does is we're in charge of finding the brands that best position them for success. So when you look at endemic brands like, Scuff controllers, to like PC brands, to anything like AAA non-endemics like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, my job is to basically pair brands with the right creators to tell that brand story in the form of a partnership. My team also sits at the center of UTA. So for those of you guys who don't know what UTA is, it's a three-lettered Hollywood agency. So the big three are UTA, WME, CAA. Esports and gaming is just one vertical within the entire agency. But my team runs all of the gaming campaigns. So we work really closely to like the movies team. There's a Ryan Reynolds movie coming out, and some of our talent are integrated into that. So we'll work together in placing talent into movies and non-scripted TV. We work very, very closely with music. So some of the campaigns or some of the projects we've had a privilege of working on is, the first music concert in Fortnite, Marshmello and the Fortnite integration. That was my team. We just did Post Malone and his concert in Pokemon. So we have a deep relationship with talent across the agency, and we try to think of innovative ways to pair them up with opportunities, whether it be with AAA brands, publishers, etc.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing like what your role is and what your day-to-day entails. It's really great listening to what Arya does within the C9 team, and like talking about how TikTok was like essentially his baby, and how Mark and Jessamine both kind of grew from like the Cloud9, or not Cloud9, sorry, UCI Esports community and what you guys do, as well as Eugene, with all these like big names, and it's great to hear. Moving on to the next question, it's for Eugene and Jessamine. It would be primarily, what is the common misconception about your field, and did any aspects of your job surprise you?
I think that question might be for Mark and Arya.
Oh, since Maria and Mark kind of did go over it.
Oh,
we're
okay, I
gonna
see.
switch
Okay,
it
got
over.
it.
Sorry about
Cool,
that.
cool. No, I was just making sure. Okay. So common misconception, basically, was that was you said the question you
Yeah.
asked? Right? Okay.
A
Yes.
common. Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Common misconception is well, it's gaming. So most people who know nothing about gaming are like, oh, you get to play games all the time, get to live stream, you get to talk to Pokemon, like Eugene said. So no, it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of hard work all the time, and all the cool content you see coming out all the time has people working on it literally all the time. So that's a common misconception. And then the second part of the question, just to answer that, did any aspect of my job surprise me? The surprise part was taking a passion and a hobby that I had that I loved and quantifying that and putting that into metrics and making it super businessy. So that was the biggest surprise for me. Like, obviously now that makes sense that those things happen, but as an outsider, it really surprised me coming in.
I'll start with I guess the biggest misconception I think people have about the job, or I would say just more specifically, just like the industry as a whole, is like gamers are not like pro athletes or entertainers in their own right. And I think that's crazy wrong. I mean, and I think that goes into what shocks me the most is, can you make a career out of gaming? I would say, like, being on the agent side and on the representative side, if I could do it over, like, I would probably don't quit school. I'm not saying quit school, but I'd probably quit school and just stream full time and try to make it as a streamer. Like, the amount of money you can make is absolutely ridiculous. Like, to think you can, to average like a few thousand concurrent views on Twitch can make you a millionaire is pretty insane in my book. So I think the misconception that these guys are not like entertainers or even on pro athletes, like, people look at NFL or NBA contracts, like some of the guys, and you know, Jess could probably attest to this, and I won't throw out figures, but like some of the big contracts that you see on Twitch and YouTube is very, very close to what you would see in like the NBA. So I'd probably lean with that. Yeah.
Thanks for giving us that insight, you guys. And this next question is going to be for Mark and Arya. What's the toughest aspect of your job? And also, what's your favorite part? So both ends of the spectrum.
You can take it, Mark.
All right, I'll give you a break from going first. You know, I'd say as a director, I would say just kind of leading people can be very challenging. One, you have to set them up for success. So give them the tools, resources, mentorship, guidance they need, while removing the barriers and obstructions along the way. So that's partly challenging, but I think also just understanding that they're humans and they're people and that there's ups and downs. And geez, I'll tell you, in the world of COVID, it's been so hard to like keep the morale high and the energy. We used to be this really close-knit staff. We sat inches from each other and hung out. And I will say it's been really challenging for me personally, just to kind of figure out how to either lower my expectations for like culture, or B, kind of really push people out of their comfort zones when there's a lot of depressing things that happened in 2020. So whether it's the Me Too movement that happened in games and esports, that was honestly pretty closely connected to our UCI family. Additionally, the kind of Black Lives Matter kind of tragedies that happened last year, it just kind of was like a lot. And so for me, like the job of doing esports and hiring coaches and recruiting players is like so small compared to the kind of keeping the morale up and getting the best out of people and motivating and inspiring and keeping them happy and healthy. So maybe not a esports specific answer, but as a director, that's certainly, I think, my biggest challenge is on that level.
What was the question? It was like, what is your biggest challenge? I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, what's like the toughest aspect of your job? And then what's your
Okay.
favorite part on the other hand?
Okay. Yeah. I would say the toughest part, like the part that I was kind of in like a rude awakening for, was social media as a job. Sometimes it feels like you don't clock out for the day. Like you're sitting at your desk, you're watching Twitter all day, and then things are always happening. It's social media. The world of social media is constantly moving, and so it's kind of you're expected in this job to kind of react to things that are trending no matter what time they're happening, and to always be kind of on top of your stuff. So when I first started working at social media, um I had a really tough time like turning off my work brain, even when I was really like clocked out for the day, because it felt like every time I looked at Twitter, I'm working. And sometimes to this day, it still feels like that. So, I mean, it's definitely a work in progress, but I would say that's probably one of the hardest things for people to get used to, especially if you're working in social media, is actually, you know, turning off your work brain and understanding like, okay, I'm not working right now, but even though I'm staring at Twitter, it kind of feels like that. And I think it just comes with a lot of practice. I've gotten better at it, but it's still something I struggle with. And I think that's why a lot of people who work in esports, and particularly in social media, burn out so quickly, is because social media is becoming more and more a part of people's lives every day. And so, when your job is to do social media, and you're going on Twitter or TikTok for your own personal fun, outside of work, in your brain it might not register that like you're actually done with work that day. And I deal with it all the time, but I think it's a really tough thing to get used to, but as you work more and more in the field, you'll get used to it. And you'll understand how important it is to take breaks and like actually go outside and take a walk, because I've really understood with this job and just with quarantine in general just how important it is to actually take a mental reset, go outside, and then come back in and sit at my desk and play games. Because sometimes even if I'm done with work for the day, I'll go and I'll start playing games with friends, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like I'm off work, because I've sat at this desk for 12 hours browsing Twitter, right? And I didn't actually leave my room to go do a reset. And so that's what I think is like one of the hardest things, is just really understanding and being able to turn off that side of your brain that's making you think you're working in a certain moment. But I mean, other than that, like I really love my job. Like I said, a lot of people don't get to say they make memes for a living, and just get to interact and engage with people online and respond. Like I can go make someone's day right now by replying with the C9 account. That's a really great feeling. I feel really empowered when I can do that, even if it's on a stupid TikTok comment where they're just making a dumb joke. Like, so that person might look at that and like, wow, like I didn't expect them to reply to me. But to me, like I know how it feels to be on the other side. And so I know how, wholesome it is and like unexpected it is to actually get a reply from someone, or someone as big as like a brand account.
And I'm gonna go back because I forgot to like end on a positive with my favorite part of my job, because I was a little Debbie Downer. But I would say my favorite part, I say this a lot with my staff, is trying to build a perfect product or perfect team out of imperfect parts. So we're all imperfect people. We all have our great qualities, our deficiencies. Same with our players, same with our coaches. There's team dynamics to kind of factor in. So for me, this beautiful final product of what does a player look like, what does a team look like at the end of the season, after you've coached them up, you've kind of built this wonderful culture, and we have a phenomenal team and program culture. But at the end of the day, what have you created? And if you're able to win the last game, win that championship, and we've done that a couple times, it feels so great to know that you saw how far you came from these people who play video games way too much. Maybe don't have a great interpersonal skills. They have some learning to do, some growth to make. But at the end of the day, if you can win with that group of people, it's just so rewarding. So that's my favorite part of my job. And it like I said, super rewarding when your team kind of continues to build and grow and can win together.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, guys. I definitely have to agree with the work-life balance, as not only with professionals, but there's a lot of like mental stress with students as well, where we're constantly looking at our cameras 24/7 or computers 24/7. So I definitely resonate with that aspect as well. And in retrospect, I also believe that the the favorite part is really amazing, because it's also amazing here about like Mark telling about his success stories on the UCI Esports community, as well as Arya talking about kind of the fact that he gets to make someone make someone's day by just sending a message and a reply on TikTok. So thank you for that. Moving on to our next question, it's for Arya. Could you provide more insight as to what your social media coordinator internship was like for students who are also interested in looking to pursue an internship within esports?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna be honest. When I joined C9 as an intern, I was kind of just like thrown into the fire because well, one, when I joined as an intern, I didn't really have esports experience and I had very little social media experience. So you might be thinking like, how did this guy even get the job? But yeah, I kind of like made myself stand out in the application process, and that's what kind of landed me in the internship, right? But when I got there, because I didn't have that experience, there were a lot of things I need to learn on the fly. And, you know, when I joined, I tell this to my boss, Janet, all the time. I love her. But they were so understaffed. I don't know how they did a lot of the things that they did as a team. So um, when I joined, like I realized, oh my God, like they're putting in like 50, 60 hours trying to do everything. I'm like, okay, I got to really step in here. And they threw me into game coverage. They're like, Aria, we're going to show you how to cover CSGO, Valorant, League of Legends. I mean, I watch a lot of the games, right? So I have my own ideas. But, there's a certain difference between, tweeting from a main account or tweeting from your own account and tweeting from an actual brand account. And so I've never tweeted from a brand account. So I had to learn how to do that. And, it took a lot of trial and error. I made a lot of mistakes and I laugh about them to this day. But really, like I learned so many things. I learned how to actually start a social campaign and actually, plan one out. I learned how to cover a game. I learned how to interact with players and ask them to, retweet stuff that we want them to retweet about certain campaigns or stuff involving them. I've learned how to post YouTube videos with all these different tags and keywords, scheduling posts, and just overall planning and like time management skills has really like I've gone up since I became an intern because it's esports. Things are always moving last minute very quickly. Like if you want an industry that everything is planned out 6 months ahead and you want to schedule everything ahead of time, esports is not the industry for you because it's new, it's young, and it's moving. So there's no time. If sometimes it feels like there's no breaks. But it really is rewarding and it's super fun. And as an intern, I had some of the most like fun times of my life. I met so many great coworkers who I'm really great friends with now and that we hang out with outside of the office. But also just a little thing about that. I've never actually been in the office or like we don't when I joined as an intern, it's been, quarantine was still happening. So I've yet to go in and work an actual day in the office or be at an actual esports event, which I'm really looking forward to once all this is done. But yeah, I think the internship is extremely rewarding as long as you're hungry and you're ready to be a sponge and just willing to learn everything around you and not take criticism or like advice personally and look at it as more of an opportunity to improve yourself, then I think, it's a great opportunity for anyone who wants to get into esports because I cannot explain the amount of times you will fail and learn from being not, I mean, you're an intern, you're expected to learn and pick things up as you go. So failure or not doing something correctly is completely okay. But it's really about being a sponge and understanding that when people are giving you advice, they're not coming at your character or saying that you did this, terribly wrong. They're saying because they want to make you better. And so I really think that's what our internship is about. And I've never really been in a mentorship position, so I'm really actually excited for the interns that are applying with the job posting we just listed. And so I'm really excited to, be in that position that Janet was for me and to show people what it's like to work at C9 and to learn and to be a part of, such a great organization.
Thank you so much for giving us so much insight on that. The next question is going to be for Eugene and Mark. So we noticed that you guys have a lot of experience in terms of immersing yourself within the esports community. So you're wondering if there's any projects or events that you were part of that confirmed your passion for esports. Just anything that just stands out to you as a change in your career.
I'll go first. You know, there's been a lot of really cool moments with our program. We were, as I mentioned, one of the first out of the gate. There were, you can count on one hand how many college esports programs in the world existed before we launched. I don't know, I think some of the big things that have been a part of my career is, I don't know if you saw a few years ago, we did a docu-series with ESPN. I thought that was a pretty cool thing to have 4 episodes following our League of Legends team as they tried to defend their national championship. We ended up not winning, but it was pretty cool to see our players on TV, and they did a great job of holistically highlighting the program from our research on campus to the teams and their families, and got to know people really well. I mean, one of the episodes actually, maybe the coolest moment I've ever had was as part of that. Well, they filmed part of it, but I was invited by kind of some leaders in the gaming industry to speak to Congress. And so I got to fly to Washington, D.C. and met with a coalition of members of the House of Representatives to give them a really quick crash course on the world of esports. They're interested in kind of millennial issues. And so I got to speak to them about the highs, the lows, the things that are going well, the things that need some work and some change. But I think that's pretty freaking cool to fly across the country and get to speak to people you've seen on TV, including former UCI faculty member Katie Porter. She showed up to that. So there's been so many cool moments. Been in a lot of news in a lot of different places. Our teams have been very successful, but I think anytime you show up in a major media spot, that's great. And the one other media thing I'll mention was we were featured in a CBS and Toyota commercial. Immortals, which is a professional gaming team, they hosted a tournament. UCI's league team won. Anyways, we were part of a commercial, and it aired over 150 times on normal television. And my grandma was just always watching. And so it was like this meme in my family where my grandma would yell that Mark's on TV. And so that's when I became a celebrity to my grandma, was recently in the last 6 months, when they continued to see my commercial featuring our program on television. So those are some fun moments.
I think for me, this is really more stemmed out from like an event. Like, I've been really blessed to be a part of some really cool stuff, like game launches, big esporting events. I think this is more emotional for me. I think, like, you know, I've definitely had jobs where I like could not wait for 5 o'clock to come. Like, I would like watch the clock and be like, yep, time to go home. Like, glad the day is over. But I think like the one moment that kind of cemented like I'm in the right place is like every single day when I wake up, when I go to sleep, like I constantly like want to learn about like how this business is going to grow. Because, you know, esports and gaming, like even though it's been around for like, at least gaming has been around for a really long time. And, you know, I think even esports, you know, dates back, you know, even into the early 90s when you look at like Atari and those types of games. But like just now it's starting to get that mainstream coverage and exposure. But I think for me, like, you know, I catch myself, you know, kind of to Aria's point, like I catch myself working really late, and I'm just like, I don't mind it because it's super fun and you get to like be immersed in something you're super excited about. And I think, you know, on the business side, because this is, you know, obviously a business club, right? I think you could turn it any one of your passions into a business. I think that's super fact. You know, being, you know, in sports and music, then getting into like, you know, tech and finance, and then into gaming. Like, I think if you have a passion, like you could turn that into a business. And when I look deeper into like the business of gaming, like from the top down, there's room for anybody in this industry, whether you're a finance major, accounting, if you want to get into marketing, if you want to get into like the commercial sales side of the business. And I think like the one moment where I kind of realized like this thing is so much bigger than a controller or a mouse and keyboard. Is, I was able to sit in and kind of just observe, like, one of the partners on my team do a merger and acquisition deal of selling House Party to Epic, and being able to see like an integration of a tech app, which is like video conferencing. I remember when COVID or the pandemic first started, like House Party was like a really big app where people were like playing games with each other, chatting with each other. And to see like that deal happen where a gaming publisher was like, hey, video games is so much more than just beating a level. It's like a way of engagement and of social behavior, where we want you to not only game with your friends, but we want you to be able to talk and see your friends while you do it. Come help us find and acquire a company that will help us do that. And so that to me was like, this is a business that is far deeper than just, like I said, winning a battle royale match or winning a level in a video game. This is like the next generation's way of social behavior and engagement. And I think for me, that kind of cemented, outside of the emotional side, that was like the pivotal moment of like, this is just the beginning. And I think everyone who's been in gaming is like really feeling the luck and like, man, we're in a good spot right now. And everybody else is just trying to figure out like, how do I get involved in this? And what does it mean? And to be like, I'm not going to call myself a thought leader. I don't believe in that, but like to be someone who's like looked upon to be like, hey, like, come help us build these strategies out. Come help us do this is really cool. And I think that was like what cemented like the decision that, for me anyway, I can't tell everybody here that I'll be in gaming forever, but at least for the foreseeable future, it's definitely a place that I want to be.
Great. Thank you so much, Eugene and Mark. Thank you for telling us how, where kind of the main project and where that passion stemmed from. And it was great hearing about like specific events that kind of confirmed your passion for esports. And so moving on to the next question, it's for Jessamine. Often outside experiences assist in helping one grow personally and professionally. And could you provide more insight as to how your experience attending UCI Irvine Esports First Gaming, Girls and Gaming Youth Camp and traveling to Germany has helped you grow?
Yeah, actually, I didn't attend the camp. I put the camp together. So I was the camp coordinator. So I can talk about that experience first. That was kind of like my first year as an intern at the UCI Esports program. Myself and another intern who is now a full-time staff at UCI Esports. Her name is Hillary Fan. We were fellow interns and we were like putting this camp together. I think it was kind of like her brainchild. And we were like, where do we start? Because this is not a thing that's been done before. Girls in Gaming Camp, there was no reference point. There was no guide. Like Mark said, the program kind of ran on its own path and its own thing. So we were inventing something as students, which was a really cool opportunity. So that was kind of the first event where I did outreach to really important people in the games industry, in the esports industry. That was like cold calls, cold emails, some help from Mark, of course, and some leadership. And we were very fortunate enough to have connections to some people as well. So that was my first time putting on an event like that. Obviously, there's a lot more intricacies that came with it because the camp had to do with, it was a camp for young girls. So like safety was important and stuff like that. So we had to learn all those things. Learn things about facilities and safety. And, as an undergrad, you don't really know that stuff unless, you've done like a summer camp counselor job or something like that. So it was really cool putting that together. And it was a week-long experience. So we were there from dawn till dusk, working that event and making sure everything was closed out. So that experience was really valuable because that was kind of the first time where, like I said, it was a big, massive outreach effort and scheduling and slotting time in. And those people are super busy executive people. So that was a really a big challenge on our part. The Germany trip was something special because now I got to go explain this, Mark. So Amazon Game Studio contracted UCI students to test a game. I'm simplifying things. Mark, feel free to correct me if you want to. I'm simplifying things. So we had this cool opportunity to work at Amazon Game Studio, and we got paid $20 an hour to play a game for 4 hours, which was pretty sick as a student. And we were there once a week to test out this game that unfortunately later on never came out, but it got so much hype that, you know, pro players were testing it, etc. Lots of hype got gathered around it, and enough hype gathered around it that our school team, our student team, was invited to compete in a first world event of this game in Germany. So it was Gamescom. It's a big convention there in Germany, massive games convention there. Game developers, esports, streamers, you name it, anything in gaming. So thanks to the opportunity of Amazon, I also kind of self-inserted myself on that trip. So thanks, Mark. I was able to go on the trip and kind of record the trip for our program. That experience was very interesting because we were kind of like out in the wild by ourselves. No admin to help us. We're the adults there. So that experience was super valuable. Just corralling people, and maybe Eugene, you can speak to this. Mark, I'm sure you can speak to this. Corralling players, always a hard thing to do. Corralling players. They're kind of like divas, kind of stars of the show. So you know what comes with that. And making sure we get to places on time in a place that doesn't have English signs everywhere. So again, a really cool experience of being thrown into the wild like that. Those outside experiences for sure have helped me in terms of my career. I've definitely used those experiences directly in the next couple of years that followed after that event. So like that was in 2017. I was still an undergrad then. So after that, I continued to be an intern at UCI Esports until I graduated in 2018. So I would say having that connection to different from people from Amazon and people from Blizzard and people from all these different places, and then just being in a one-on-one conversation with them, actually, their smartness and their experience kind of rubs off on you if you ask the right questions. So it's a lot about mindset. For me, what's valuable about those conversations is the mindset that these leaders have and these people with these experiences have. Not necessarily like, hey, you have my number, hey, you have my, you know, email address, but picking their brain about how they make those decisions, what is kind of the top of their mind and what their next move is and stuff like that, and asking those kind of deep questions, which I find that they like to be asked those questions, luckily, so they give you their insight. That has definitely, those lessons have stayed with me. And I just kind of have that opportunity to kind of collect those lessons and kind of put it in my little notebook and be like, this is cool. So yeah, those experiences were super, super valuable. And they definitely are part of like a big chain reaction that helped me get to where I am now. So.
Yeah, just hearing about those experiences alone sounds super valuable to me, and love that you got to go through that. This next question is for Mark. So we wanted to know, throughout your time at UCI, how have you seen the esports industry evolve?
Well, first of all, I just want to make one small distinguishing remark, and that gaming is everything revolving around games, and esports is like this tiny element that is competitive. And so you think of streaming is much broader, I think, than esports. So esports, in my opinion, is just this narrow top 2 or 3% of people who want to play games competitively. I would say I have felt a huge growth in terms of interest around it, excitement around it. You now see hundreds of schools with esports programs. And I think it's tempting to feel like that's positive growth, but I also think it's also kind of overselling how much money there is in esports. People think esports is just buried in money and revenue, and that's not the case for us, certainly. And I'd say most universities are running on shoestring budgets, even though there's a lot of interest, and colleges need to find a strategy to deal with these gajillions of gamers on their campuses. I feel like I've seen just growth tremendously, but also feel like an overwhelming misunderstanding that esports is a cash cow, a moneymaker, a path to printing dollars for your university. And something I'll just mention as an observation I have, and that higher ed's changing very quickly right now. And broadly, if you look at small private liberal arts universities, especially in the middle of the country, they're struggling for students. And so esports is a tool a lot of schools are using to try to drive more admissions, more enrollment. Very few universities are doing it out of a position of strength, and many universities are doing it out of a position of trying to adapt to do something new and innovative. Robert Morris, the first school to create an esports program, it no longer exists. It's been bought out by another university. Becker College, which is one of the most public schools in terms of having esports curriculum, they just went out of business. So I would say, every faculty member, every university president or chancellor knows about esports. They're trying to figure out what to do with it. They're interested in it, but at the same time, universities are kind of still trying to figure it out. And there's not an overwhelmingly large amount of money to invest into it right now. So for me, it's a lot of interest and kind of measured kind of expectations in terms of what to expect.
Great, thank you so much for that, Mark. And then last but not least, before we do go into the open Q&A question, we did want to ask Eugene one last question. And we noticed that you have explored various different industries, ranging from being a manager for a brand partnership consultant for PressX, as well as a manager for Acorns and many more. We were wondering if you could walk us through your journeys there and what kind of skills you learned that has been very transferable along the way.
Great question. It's been such an interesting journey. I think, I've always taken a little learning experience in every job that I've had. And I think the one key advice that I would give everybody is, just try to be just the best at what you do. It doesn't matter what it is. Like if you're a social media manager, if you're in sales, if you're in finance, whatever, like just try to be the best at what you do. Like, don't worry about money in the beginning. Like that's all just noise. Like if you're great, like the money will come, the success will come. Like just be hungry all the time and always be a sponge and be willing to learn. I think, and be willing to help other people too. I think, going from music and sports into like tech finance, into gaming, I'd say it all kind of felt like, I don't want to say it's like I'm just like a lucky person, but it kind of felt, the ball bounced my way for sure. Like I think that it definitely was a lot of networking, but it was a lot of hard work, and the opportunities like always has come to me. And I think it's just because like I always focused on like what I can control and being great at like what I was doing. And I tell like people who reach out to me cold on LinkedIn all the time, like they're like, well, like how did you get into this industry? Like what's the X factor? Like how do I get in? And I was like, I tell them all the time, I've never had a job that I applied for. Straight facts. Like my very first job was because I had a coffee chat with somebody because I was so interested in sports and in music. And I had probably like 10 different coffee chats, and one person believed in me and said, you know what, we have an opening at this role, like come do it. And I did it. And same thing with like tech and finance. When I was in sports and music, I was missing this piece in me that I was like, I don't know how selling sponsorships helps people. I really want to help people. And that's why I was driven to Acorns, because of like the value mission of like helping like the 99% of people who don't have, $1,000 in their savings account find a platform to help them save money through like rounding up spare change. And I wanted to get into tech. And, when I did that for a little bit, I was like, this is great. I love helping people, but it's not entertainment. And that's my true calling. And I want to do gaming. And, getting into gaming was super tough. Like before I got my first job in gaming, I got rejected by Riot, EA, and 2K all in the same year. And the same feedback I got was, you just don't have gaming experience. And I made a joke at the beginning of this call before the larger group comes on, but it's like, you got to manifest like your future and like really go after like everything that you want. And I truly believe in that. Like I was working full-time at Acorns at the time, and I reached out to literally anybody in gaming that would take on free work. And I found PressX, and I worked for free for like 8 months. I didn't take a single dollar because I wanted gaming experience so bad. And I was going to business school at the time. So it was like, if you want something, just go get it and, chase after it. And I think, to bring it full circle, the power of just like believing and chasing after what you want, and is that like when I worked at PressX for free, that group got acquired by UTA. And when I was doing the best job I could at Activision, that partner called me like in August and said like, I want you to lead this team, and this is the opportunity for you. And you just never know how everything connects and like falls into place. And I think like when you work with people and they see like this is a driven person and they're great at what they do, like those opportunities will come to you when you least expect it. You just got to be ready for it, and you got to be the person on the other line of on the other side of the phone is willing to call you and think of you because they have such a great working experience for you. So it's like even Arya, like when you were talking, I was like, I'm sure in the interview process, they're like, yeah, this guy might not know everything, but man, we just really like working with this guy. He's probably a hustler, and we're willing to teach him, and that probably led to like that full-time job at C9. So I think, in a roundabout way, like I said, like always be willing to learn, like even if like it's something like that, even if it's like a little thing at a job, like just take it for what it is, because it'll always carry over to your next job. And my best advice for the group on this call is, always be willing to learn, and, just hustle, and, be the best at what you do. And look, opportunities will come to you. And I truly believe in that. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for telling us more about your start in getting to where you are now, and also the power of manifestation. Definitely want to echo that. It can do wonders. So now we're going to open up our open Q&A. So to our participants, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask any of our speakers, feel free to either type it in the Zoom chat or unmute so our speakers can, get to know you, hear your voice, either one, whatever you're comfortable with. And while we wait for those questions to roll in, I'm going to unspotlight everyone so our speakers can see the people who do unmute.
I can
Already.
go. Oh,
okay, go ahead, Lewin.
yeah. First off, I want to say thank you guys for speaking today. It's great to hear all your insight and all your experiences. I think Ariel was kind of talking about it earlier about how he hasn't been to the actual office, like the actual esports events. I guess a question I have for all you guys is what's one thing you guys are looking forward to once things slowly go back to in person and stuff.
I mean, I can answer that. I've never been, it's funny because I work at C9, but I've actually never been to a esports event. And a lot of people are like, how is that possible, dude? You work at one of the biggest orgs in esports. But yeah, I've never actually been to an LCS match or CSGO or anything like that. So I'm really looking, and I'm a people person. I really love to be in front of people's faces, and I love talking with people and meeting new people. So honestly, this year in quarantine has been I've just been telling myself, okay, one more month, because as much as working from home is cool and you get a lot of freedom, I live for being in an office and being goofy and actually being in front of my coworkers and seeing everyone, because it's so amazing, and you get to just be with people. It's different when you're interacting with them over Slack or any whatever software you use to work as a team while you're at home, than it is to be in an office and actually see each other and see each other in person. And so I'm really looking forward to just the human connection of being in an office and seeing the people that I've worked with for a year, but now face to face. I can crack jokes with them in front of them to their face now. It's not, I'm not sending them a message on Slack or Teams and then waiting a year before they get back to me. I could just walk up to them and ask them a question when if they're not busy. So I mean, overall, I'm really excited just to be back in an office and to see everyone and to just go out and meet a bunch of people within the industry, but face to face.
Yeah, I'll just
Yeah,
jump in
I'll
and say,
echo that.
I totally feel the same way. I feel like the water cooler moments where you're just passing, having seen a colleague at Starbucks and having a conversation that turns into something else, seen our players. Jess knows that I love when I get distracted, I'll stand up and go walk over and watch our players play solo queue or rank queue, and get to just have those casual interactions that just add so much to your culture and your dynamics and creates a more warm, friendly environment. So I'm desperately missing that and really excited to see people face to face at some point soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo both those guys. I mean, I think, you know, at UTA, we represent people. So it's been really hard not to get in front of our clients and, you know, have a dinner or have coffee with them and just chat about all things outside of just business. I think, you know, part of having a representative or having an agent is knowing that the person in your corner cares about you more than just like the business that you do together, but you as a human and how you're doing. And you know, we get to do things over Zoom right now and on phone calls, and that's okay. But, you know, missing that human interaction and that one-to-one to know like the person on the other side of the phone or on the other side of this virtual screen is actually a living, breathing individual. So I really can't wait to get back out and, you know, actually having, you know, that physical one-to-one time with our clients and just checking in and just making sure that, hey, over the last year and a half that they're doing okay. So very similar to Mark and Arya there.
Oh, same for me. I haven't been to the Twitch OC office yet, and I'm very excited because apparently their food is better than the Twitch San Francisco office. So I want to try that.
Definitely, definitely. We can move into our next question as well in the chat. Catherine asked, what are the best ways to get exposure to the gaming industry as a college student? And again, open to anyone.
I answer this question a lot, and I think both Eugene, Arya, and Jess are all great examples of this. Is you just got to start doing it, and you're not going to get paid the first second you start doing it, and you may not be good at the element you're doing, but find something you like, whether it's social media, graphic design, videography. If you are good enough to be a professional player, good for you. But find something you like and start doing it, and ask for feedback from other people so you can kind of gauge your progress, try to get better. But too many people are, in my opinion, just trying to like go from nothing to a paid role in games or esports. And I will tell you, it's just more competitive than that. Even our internship programs, like you're going to have to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. Our videographers are very talented videographers. Our graphic designers are very talented. So be very talented at something. And I will say, roles that I think everybody needs in the 21st century: video editing, photography, videography, graphic design, and social media are all things I think everybody's looking to hire right now. So if you're good at those things, I think there's a role out there, either as a volunteer or paid role.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you just got to do it. I think if you look at, you know, like if you're into like, there's so many things that you can do within gaming, right? Like I said before, I think I mentioned like whatever you're passionate about, there's like a role somewhere in gaming. So it's like you have to find that passion and just like really chase after it. So one of the success stories that I always tout was we signed this client. I don't know if any of you who watch YouTube or esports a lot, there's this group called Esports Talk, and they started at like 0 viewers and like just they put out a YouTube video every single week with like really decent production. And they just talked about esports news. That's all they did. It wasn't anything special, but in their mind, they're like, we want to be the ESPN of esports. And whether we get 100 views or 100,000 views, we're committed to putting out like multiple videos a week. And they caught like our attention. And literally when we had the phone call to sign these guys, they're like, we had no idea when it was going to happen. We just knew it was going to happen. And we were so committed to the cause, and we were just dedicated and putting out videos every single week. And it's all about repetition, and it's about keeping with it. You know, I think one of the things that's common within esports is a lot of brands will be like, oh yeah, we want to get into gaming and we're going to launch our Twitch channel. And I think the issue with that is there's no consistency into it. Like imagine wanting to be an Instagram influencer and only posting like once a month. There's just like no chance you're ever going to make it. You know, you have to post every single day. In the beginning, you're hashtagging everything under the sun and moon to catch attention, right? So I think, you know, to echo Mark, you got to do it, but you got to do it consistently and you have to commit to it.
Yeah, I think I can answer this question and Kirby's question in one. As far as like getting exposure, like I feel like the way I got into esports is a little unique because I didn't have that exposure to esports and social media. So it's like the way I got in was kind of different because, and I knew that, and I knew because um there were 1,000 applicants, and I knew all of them or most of them definitely had a better resume than me. I had to look to show who I was and the value that I could bring to the organization in a different way. So that's actually why I ended up making a like YouTube application video for C9. Like, I knew I had very little social media experience, and I definitely had very, very little esports experience, right? So I knew my resume wasn't going to get me the job. And so it's really about like showing what you can do and showing what like you've done for esports, like volunteering, doing internships, anything you can. And then, but personally, the reason like I truly believe this, because this is literally how I got my job, is that even with experience and even with really showing that you care about esports, if you do a good enough job of showing who you are and the value that you could provide, even if you don't have that experience, I think trumps anything, because that's literally my story. Is I didn't have any of that experience, but I put myself out there and I did something different and unique from the 1,000 other applicants that applied to this social media position. And I truly believe that from my heart, that at the end of the day, you can have all the experience in the world, but if you don't show why you're unique and what you can bring to the organization that it doesn't have currently, then it's not doing much for you. And that's because I've lived it, and that's how I ended up where I am today. And as far as networking, like DMing people, emailing as many people in the field, having coffee talks, I mean, like showing that you're reaching out to as many people as you can and trying your best to actually get all this knowledge and experience from other people is just really, really important. And if anyone is curious about like how I actually got the job, I mean, not to like self promo or anything, but I'll link the video in the Zoom chat. But that's basically, like, this video is my entire career essentially. Like this video is the exact reason why I'm in the position that I am, why I'm even here speaking with you guys today. Like, if I didn't make this video, if I didn't take the time to plan and really properly plan how I want to market myself to C9 and how I want to show my value, I wouldn't be here talking with you guys today. And there's a lot more that goes into how you show yourself and your value than just posting a random YouTube video. There's a lot of process that goes into it.
I will add one note on the networking part, because I think I get this a lot is, man, I've been networking, I've been messaging all of the people in these companies that I really want to connect with, and nobody gets back to me. Like, I get ghosted all the time. Like, the reality is, guys, like 50% of the people you reach out to, if not more, are never going to answer your notes. But I think it's like the more persistent you are, and like the more you're like, you know what, like off to the next one, off to the next one. It doesn't matter if they're like, an SVP at a company, a coordinator, an assistant, whatever. It's like, go into these conversations with like authenticity of just like wanting to learn about the industry, figuring it out if it is for you, and networking that way. And I'll say this, like, never get discouraged if you don't hear back, after the first attempt. Like, wait a little bit, try again. But I will also say, like, don't blow someone up like 10 times. Like, that'll probably get like for me anyway, it's like, a lot of people have regular day jobs and are super busy. And I think one good way is like, hey, being respectful and say, hey, I understand, like, maybe you don't have any time, but could you maybe point me towards like someone that might be a better fit to have this conversation with me? I think like most people who are networking tend to always remember, like, damn, like I used to be in that position. Like, I remember all the people that have helped me along the way, and will generally at least point you in the right direction or connect you with somebody that, may have the time to have a coffee chat or sit down. But, to Arya's point, like, networking is super important to get discovered in this industry, and always go in with like a form of being genuine and authentic and just wanting to learn, and not from the lens of like, I'm only talking to you because like I want to get a job.
Just quickly add on just like a last 2 cents thing, since we're almost at time. I'm not a networking person. I'm very shy. I think it's weird to randomly DM people, and I know it's necessary, but I still made it. So if you're not a sociable person, you'll be totally fine if you keep your head down and keep working hard, which is essentially what I did. I put myself in places where I wanted to be, but I didn't necessarily do a lot to network to do that. I let my work speak for myself usually, which might not have been the best solution, but there is hope for those people who aren't super like into going to events and DMing people and following people. So just wanted to say that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much to all the speakers and all the general audience who answered or had a question. Just to close everything out, I was hoping we could take a group picture. And so if everyone could turn on their cameras so we can see everyone's beautiful and amazing faces, that would be great. And I'll give it like, if you want to, no preference. Cool. All right, and I will take the picture in. Okay, cool. I'll take the picture in 3, 2, 1. Cool. Moving on to the second page, and we'll take it one last time. And 3, 2, 1. Great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Awesome. And I'll just share
Awesome.
screen again to close our event. But yeah, thank you for Jessamine and Market for adding into the chat and pubbing different things like that. If anything, we can include that info in our newsletter as well. But yeah, I'm gonna do some closing announcements before we go. Okay, so ways to stay connected with us is to register for our next event. Our next event is going to be a UBA UFA collab, which is with our finance club on campus. We're doing an Excel workshop and going back to the basics. So if you're interested in learning more about that, feel free to pre-register using that QR code. We also have all our social media channels here, so you can keep up to date with everything that we're doing. And then on the right, we have our Discord QR code. So we have weekly office hours on Mondays from 9:15 to 10:15, where you can just chat with some of our board members or ask us any questions, reach out for help, things like that. But yeah, thank you for coming to our event, everyone. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the